All right, hello. So, right now we're going to cover the 20th century poetic revolution lesson activity. This is really important for the unit activity for this unit because these are the poems that the unit activity is pulled from. So, again, please make sure that you've gone through the tutorial on your own to understand a lot of this stuff. Won't really do you a whole lot of good just being able to answer the questions if you're not learning anything. Okay, so we're going to go over a few poems. The first one we're going to look at is A Bird in the House by Elizabeth Jennings. We're going to look at how her attitude towards death changes throughout the poem. Oh, and oh, that the man I am might cease to be by D.H. Lawrence. We're going to look at the emotional state of the speaker. And then we have Yeats's poem, An Irishman Foresees His Death, and we're going to evaluate if it is traditional or modernist. You'll need to know what to be looking for that. We have Nothing to Save by D.H. Lawrence. Why would the poem be considered an imagist work? And then we'll talk about one of my favorite poems of all time, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. All right, so in the poem A Bird in the House by Elizabeth Jennings, how does the speaker's attitude towards death change? Support your answer with details. Okay. Not too long. It was a yellow voice, a high, shrill tremble in the nursery. White always and high, I remember it so. White cupboards, off-white table, mugs, dolls' faces, and I was 4 or 5. The garden could have been miles away. We were taken down to the green asparagus beds. The cut lawn and the smell of it comes each summer after rain when the white returns. Our bird, a canary called Peter, sang behind bars. The black and white cat curled and snoozed by the fire, and danger was far away for us. Safety was life, and only now do I know that white walls and lit leaves knocking windows are a good prison, but always you have to escape. Fly off from love not felt as love, but our bird died in his yellow feathers. The quick cat caught him, tore him through the bars when we were out, and I do not remember tears or sadness. I only remember the ritual, the warm yellow feathers we put in a cardboard egg. What a sense of fitness. How far I now know. Ritual goes back, egg to egg, birth to burial, and we went down the garden softly, two in a small procession, and the high clouds bent down, the sky pulled aside its blue curtains. Death was there, or else where the wise cat had hidden. That day we buried our bird with a sense of fitness, not knowing death would be hard later, dark, without form or purpose. After my first true grief I wept, was sad, was dark, but today, clear of terror and agony, the yellow bird sings in my mind, and I say that the child is callous but wise, knows the purpose of play. And the grief of 10 years ago right, a walk down the garden carrying death in an egg, and the sky singing, the trees still waving farewell, when dying was nothing to know. All right. So, how does the speaker's attitude about death change? So she says she didn't really feel here. I do not remember tears or sadness. I only remember the ritual. So it's harder for children to understand death in the way that we do as we grow older and grow attachments to things. So as a child, she didn't really remember being sad, but she was extremely sad as she was older and had her first true grief. So she wasn't immediately sad, but as an adult, when she understands it, she feels grief later on. This idea of not knowing death would be hard later, dark without form or purpose. After my first true grief, I wept and said was dark. So she recalls it and she feels that the child is callous but wise. So it's just this idea that so callous means like when you get a callus on your hands, it means like you've built up a protection, right? So if you're a callous person, you're a hard person to break into and to like deal with. So the child is callous but wise. So like they don't feel that level of emotion because they don't really quite understand death, but that's wisdom because everything dies. We can't really do anything about it. So fretting over something and being upset about it when we can't control it is unwise. And so children are more wise in that way. Okay. Next. What? Okay. In and oh, that the man I am might cease to be by D.H. Lawrence. What is the emotional state of the speaker? No, now I wish the sunshine would stop, and the white shining houses and the gay red flowers on the balconies, and the bluish mountains beyond would be crushed out between two valves of darkness. The darkness falling, the darkness rising, with muffled sound obliterating everything. I wish that whatever props up the walls of light would fall, and darkness would come hurling heavily down, and it would be thick, black, dark forever. Not sleep, which is gray with dreams, nor death, which quivers with birth, but heavy, sealing darkness, silence, all immovable. What is sleep? It goes over me like a shadow over a hill, but it does not alter me nor help me. And death would ache still, I am sure it would be lambent, uneasy. I wish it would be completely dark everywhere, inside me and out, heavily dark, utterly. Uh, he seems pretty bummed, doesn't he? So the question we're looking at is what's the emotional state of the speaker? I would venture to say that he's depressed. He really just wants darkness. He wants silence. He doesn't want to be alive anymore. He just, yeah. This stanza here, the second stanza, really would be your textual evidence for this. Like, I wish that whatever props up the walls of light would fall and darkness would come hurling heavily down, and it would be thick, black, dark forever. Not sleep, nor death. It's like death isn't even enough for how badly he feels. So, yikes. If you ever feel that way, please make sure that you talk to somebody. Does Yeats's poem An Irishman Foresees His Death seem to be traditional or modernist? All right, we'll talk about some of that stuff, but I know that I shall meet my fate somewhere among the clouds above. Those that I fight I do not hate, those that I guard I do not love. My country is Kiltartan, cross, my countrymen Kiltartans poor. No likely end could bring them loss, or leave them happier than before. Nor law, nor duty bade me fight, nor public men, nor cheering crowds. A lonely impulse of delight drove to this tumult in the clouds. I bounced all, brought all to mind. The years to come seem waste of breath, a waste of breath the years behind, in bounce with life, this death. So this is basically from the viewpoint of somebody who's died in World War One. I think it says over here. Yeah, World War One. Okay, so if you think that it's more traditional, it's like a full statement. There's not really a variety of interpretations. It's pretty clear what this poem is about. And it's not really full of like unusual visual imagery. If you think it's a little bit more modernist, he is basically just talking about the idea that like life is futile and that's the reason to go to war rather than for all the reasons that people usually do. So you just like, I would be wasting my life otherwise. Might as well do this. Like it's not being, well, it's not law or duty or public or crowds. It was just the years to come seem like they're going to be wasted. Might as well go out and maybe die. And that's that's more on like the modernist idea. And then the message isn't very clear in this poem. And that's another thing that leads to it possibly being more modernist. Normally I have all my tabs in order. Okay. Reread the poem Nothing to Save by D.H. Lawrence. Why would the poem be considered an imagist work? In the tutorial, what's the word? I don't know if it shows up in here. I know it comes up here. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah. Okay. Ezra Pound wrote a poem. This is the poem. It is called In a Station at the Metro, and this is Imagist. So you should already know this because you've done the tutorial, but it's just this idea of here's an image. That's it. So the apparition of faces in a cloud, petals on a wet black bow. So if we go back down here, why would this be considered an imagist work? Yeah, so just keep in mind the aspects of imagism. If you need to go back and look at them, you should do that because you're going to explain this. I'll read it to you. There's nothing to save, now all is lost, but a tiny core of stillness in the heart like the eye of a violet. Okay, so imagist, think imagery. What do you visualize in that poem? Read it to yourself. Think about it. Okay. Again, this is one of my favorite poems of all time. I need to find it. Okay. I'm going to read this from my book, but I will put it up on the screen. I might not do a super great job scrolling along. I apologize in advance. Please pull it up on your own screen if you are worried about that. I will try to do my best, though. Okay, I'm not going to read, I'm not going to read the Italian because I'm not going to do a good job, and I'll try some sort of Italian accent, but you can read this little side note about it. Yeah, okay, just get an idea. Okay. Oh, let's look at the questions. Sorry, I'm just excited. I like it when I get to read my favorite poems to you. So we're going to look at the structure and explain how it relates to the content. And then we're going to look at a specific group, which is actually one of my favorite stanzas of poetry. Okay. Excuse me while I'm a nerd. Let us go then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky like a patient etherized upon a table. Let us go through certain half-deserted streets, the muttering retreats of restless nights in one-step cheap hotels and sawdust restaurants with oyster shells. Streets that follow like a tedious argument of insidious intent to lead you to an overwhelming question. Oh, do not ask what is it. Let us go and make our visit. In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. The yellow fog that rubs its back upon the window panes, the yellow smoke that rubs its muzzle on the window panes, licked its tongue into the corners of the evening, lingered upon the pools that stand in drains, let fall upon its back the soot that falls from chimneys, slipped by the terrace, made a sudden leap, and seeing that it was a soft October night, curled once about the house and fell asleep. And indeed there will be time for the yellow smoke that slides along the street, rubbing its back upon the window panes. There will be time to prepare a face to meet the faces that you meet. There will be time to murder and create, and time for all the works and days of hands that lift and drop a question on your plate. Time for you and time for me, and time yet for 100 indecisions, and for 100 visions and revisions before the taking of toast and tea. In the room, the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. And indeed, there will be time to wonder, do I dare, and do I dare? Time to turn back and descend the stair, with a bald spot in the middle of my hair. They will say, how his hair is growing thin! My morning coat, my collar mounting firmly to the chin, my necktie rich and modest, but asserted by a simple pin. They will say, but how his arms and legs are thin! Do I dare disturb the universe? In a minute there is time for decisions and revisions, which a minute will reverse. For I have known them all already, known them all, have known the evenings, mornings, afternoons. I have measured out my life with coffee spoons. I know the voices dying with a dying fall beneath the music from a farther room. So how should I presume? Ah, sorry, it's split differently in my book. Okay. And I have known the eyes already, known them all. The eyes that fix you in a formulated phrase, and when I am formulated sprawling on a pin, when I am pinned and wriggled on a wall, then how should I begin to spit out all the buttons of my days and ways? And how should I presume? And I have known the arms already, known them all. Arms that are braceleted and white and bare, but in the lamplight downed with light brown hair. Is it perfume from a dress that makes me so digress? Arms that lie along a table or wrap about a shawl. And should I then presume? And how should I begin? Shall I say I have gone at dusk through narrow streets and watched the smoke that rises from the pipes of lonely men in shirt sleeves leaning out of windows? I should have been a pair of ragged claws scuttling across the floors of silent seas. In the afternoon, the evening sleeps so peacefully, smoothed by long fingers, asleep, tired, or it malingers. Stretched on the floor here beside you and me, should I, after tea and cakes and ices, have the strength to force the moment to its crisis? Though I have wept and fasted, wept and prayed, though I have seen my head grown slightly bald, brought in upon a platter, I am no prophet, and there's no great matter. I have seen the moment of my greatness flicker, and I have seen the eternal footman hold my coat and snicker, and in short, I was afraid. And it would have been worth it, after all, after the cups, the marmalade, the tea, among the porcelain, among some talk of you and me. Would it have been worth while to have bitten off the matter with a smile, to have squeezed the universe into a ball, to roll it toward some overwhelming question, to say, I am Lazarus come from the dead, come back to tell you all, I shall tell you all. If one, settling a pillow by her head, should say, this is not what I meant at all. That is not it, at all. And would it have been worth it after all? Would it have been worthwhile after the sunsets and dooryards and the sprinkled streets, after the novels, after the teacups, after the skirts that trail along the floor, and this, and so much more? Is it impossible to say just what I mean, but as if a magic lantern threw the nerves and patterns on the screen? Would it have been worthwhile? If one, settling a pillow or throwing off a shawl and turning toward the window, should say, that is not it at all. That is not what I meant at all. No, I am not Prince Hamlet, nor was meant to be. Am an attendant lord, one that will do to swell a progress to start a scene or two. Advise the prince, no doubt an easy tool, deferential, glad to be of use, politic, cautious, and meticulous, full of high sentence, but a bit obtuse, at times, indeed, almost ridiculous, almost, at times, the fool. I grow old, I grow old, I shall wear the bottoms of my trousers rolled. Shall I part my hair behind? Do I dare eat a peach? I shall wear white flannel trousers and walk upon the beach. I have heard the mermaids singing, each to each. I do not think that they will sing to me. I have seen them riding seaward on the waves, combing the white hair of the waves blown back when the wind blows the water white and black. We have lingered in the chambers of the sea, by sea girls wreathed and seaweed red and brown, till human voices wake us and we drown. All right. So, okay. Sure. Okay. So, um, it there is no structure to the poem. Is really the point. It's fragmented. It's all over the place. It is going back and forth for this person who's clearly not in a good state of mind. Um, he repeats a lot of ideas, And as he repeats them, they become more and more fragmented. So it really relates to this like fragmented idea of the mind that this person has. Okay, how so we're looking at the tone of this. So it's an unpleasant idea because it's really talking about how smoggy London is. But it's also kind of funny because he makes it behave as a cat. So this is really about like the fog and the smog and the effect, the haziness, the lack of clarity. So the tone is just sort of like this negative, realistic view of London with the haze. And then, but if you read it and you think about it like it's a cat, you can really see that, and that's really part of the effect, as well as the idea of this confusion of just like, and then the imagery of what it would look like. And that will cover the 20th century poetic revolution tutorial.